Today I begin the new mods on my suspension with the honed rear roll center correction kit. In the last episode, you saw I got a new personal best. I was really happy with how the last track day went for me because I had a lot of track time and I just keep learning how to drive this car, and it's so much fun to learn and get better. So I just broke into the 120s. I'm at the 129. I think this car has a lot more time in it, even with my little bitty D-Series engine. Some things that I noticed in the last track day were, first of all, getting heat in the Hoosiers is definitely not as easy as the last two tires that I've run on this car. They are a fickle beast, and I think they give you the gains, but you have to put the work in. The next thing that I noticed was on some of the corner exits as I was spinning the tires. Yes, with my Y7, I was spinning my Hoosier Race Slick tires. The Hoosiers seem to want, obviously, the wheels to be perfectly straight at corner exit, or I was spinning until they were there. So I think that had to do partially with not having enough negative camber. So I need to work on that next time and see if that gives me a little bit more grip out of these corners and pull me out. What helped me get better lap times last time is pushing my braking further into the corner, harder and later. And what I noticed with that is the body roll on the car, even though I have coilovers, is still an issue. It creates a lot of unwanted weight transfer that really upsets the car, has me working harder to keep the car from having the back come around, basically, in a way that's not effective. Because obviously you want some rotation, but spinning out isn't ever helpful. So you want it to be controlled. So I think with the new K-Tune coilover setup that I have, that's gonna go on the car in the next episode, is really gonna help with that. The weight transfer is going to be a lot less, so I can focus on having better corner exits. Lastly, what I noticed last track day is understeer. As I've gotten to know this car, last track day especially, the understeer became more apparent. Even with the suspension I have now and the big rear sway bar I have, I still have a lot of understeering. You can see it in my lap videos where in the corner I'm rotating the steering wheel 3 times in the corner to try to get the car to rotate. And I didn't realize that that's what I was doing until I watched the video afterwards. I'm like, wow, the understeer is kind of still apparent because I'm trying to get the car to just turn in. So I'm hoping the next phase in the suspension on this car will really start to get the car to rotate in a positive way. It's not doing that now because of the soft springs, the sway bar setup, and no rear center roll correction on the back of this car. So this brings us to now and what the future of my suspension holds. For some, my suspension is fully built, ready for the racetrack. But to me, it's kind of felt half done for a long time. It's a piece together and not a full, complete, thought out suspension package. And I think that really started when I had done my roll center correction for the front, where I installed the extended ball joints that changed the car, and I was trying to change it for the better. The problem is that no one has ever thought of how to actually correct the suspension geometry in the back. But when you lower the car, front and rear, it changes the suspension geometry. Until Hone Developments came along and really thought out that process, there's never been a way to really correct it correctly. So this is where Honed Developments comes in. I will be installing Hone's rear roll center correction kit. This kit will correct the suspension geometry, give me better turn-in response. It will give me better mid-corner adjustability, which means I can correct my driving line mid-corner more accurately and just get on the power sooner and get out of the corner quicker. Honed helped me decide in the whole suspension package. They gave me advice, and in turn that helped me because when you add these roll center corrections to the back, it actually stiffens the rear setup. So it helped me choose coilover specs and sway bar specs for this suspension. So if you need any help with your suspension, I recommend just emailing Honed. Go to their website. The link will be below. Send them an email. They are always willing to help. So they provided me with a lot of great advice. So please hit the link below in the description. That'll take you to Hone's website. They have all their products there. If you would like to look through that, buy some stuff, go check them out. So I know there's probably a lot of guys out there saying, yo, what are you doing? Why keep changing your suspension? It's a process. My goal now is to take this car and beat any car with a B20 swap. That is right, you heard me. I want to take my D16 Y7 and beat any Civic that has a B20 swap, non-VTEC. Because I believe with the right suspension setup and a little bit of tweaking to D-Series transmission, you can be just as competitive on a racetrack as a B20 equipped Civic. So, you know, because from the beginning, the thing that's haunted Refined Movement is the commenters and everybody in the Honda community saying swap, swap, swap. And we think it's not always about that. Engine swaps are cool, they cost money to do them right, and you can get a lot of bang for your buck if you make some investments in your car in different areas, and you can still go to the track and you can still have fun. Enough of me talking, let's get started on the install. Here we have the honed package they sent me. First of all, which is really cool, is honed now. They give you alignment recommendations, camber, caster, and toe, so you can use that when you get your car aligned after using their products. So that's super cool to have around. We got some stickers, definitely be using these. And we have the brackets sit up itself. Where's the package? So what you get is you get the two brackets, you get bolts and washers and nuts for the whole setup, and then instructions. It really is a simple solution for this. It's not complicated, but it did need some thought in creating, so it's really awesome that Honed has done this. That's also what I love about Honed, is they give you instructions. So you're not in the dark. Wow, color instructions. So that'll be super helpful, give you all the parts. And then we got lots of bolts. The tools you need specifically for the honed brackets installation is you need some kind of cutting wheel or a Dremel type tool. I think you can do the whole install with a Dremel, but it's going to be a slow process if you're just using the little cutting wheel. This speeds it along. I will say with this specific size, it was a little bit too small, and what would happen is eventually before I finish cutting the bung off, this would impact the trailing arm. A bigger cutting wheel would be preferred. So cutting wheel, a Dremel's good to finish the process. That's what I did, a combination of both. And then you can grind with the Dremel as well to smooth the surface of the trailing arm. And then you need a 6mm Allen key and then a 17 socket. These tools are specific to the honed install, but there are other things that are needed, like torque wrench, impact gun is helpful just for getting things apart, because you need to take a lot of the brake components and some of the suspension apart. So first of all, you want to get the car off the ground. I got these cool new Rhino ramp things that are actually really helpful. Should have bought them a long time ago. Next, you really need to remove the entire brake system from the rear, basically the calipers and the rotors and the pads. The dust shield can stay on because I did do most of this install with it on, but I did find out at the end that it really would have just been better to take it off. I actually removed it altogether. I'm not going to be using the dust shield anymore. And then there's this weird plastic flap thing that kind of diverts air or something. I'm not sure what it's for. Next step, really you need to remove some undercoating. Undercoating kind of gets on the trailing arms near this bung, so you're going to have to just kind of scrape it away with a screwdriver. So once you have all the brake components out of the way, the dust shield, if you still have it, loosened so you can kind of turn it so where you can access the lower bung here where the original mounting of the LCA is, you're gonna have to cut this piece off. That's the main part of the fabrication of this. And then after this is cut, we will fit the bracket and make sure it fits. We will have to trim the bottom of the trailing arm here and over here, that the bracket can fit correctly in this hole. So we're gonna start using our cutting wheel and cutting this piece off. So I'm test fitting it here to see if I've taken off enough material, but as you can see, you look in here, the hole does not line up. So I need to take off more material from the bottom of the trailing arm, and then that should help this slide up a little bit further, because it gets hung up on this bung if you don't take off enough material. Also need to make sure when you're up here and you've taken off that bung that it is flush, because up here it's not quite and it's too thick for the bracket to fit over. So I need to get a grinder on this, grind it down a little bit more. The bracket is in, as you can see, and there's clearance now for the bolts to go in. These short bolts, you want to fit those in the middle hole. And then do it on the opposite side over here. Then we can drill this hole once bracket to be parallel. This with this, so it should be running the same way. All right, so now I have it straight parallel to this line here, so that this is the new mounting hole for the LCA. Now I can drill with a 10mm drill bit to have the final mounting hole for this bracket. Okay, so now I have the hole drilled, so I'm going to just get some black paint on this. It's pretty exposed, so I don't want any rust. So I'm gonna shoot this black, and then we'll be good. Okay, so now that the hard part is done, all the cutting and the drilling, now all I gotta do is just take the brackets on each side and mount them up. 2 mounting holes that go into the existing hole, and then the extra hole that I drilled. This kind of extra piece, see how it's longer on this side? This actually goes facing the rear, just so you know in the future if you plan on doing that. I wasn't sure for a while and I had to kind of look at pictures. So on each side, these go towards the rear. So when you go to start the reassembly, you're gonna have to do the brakes and the bracket all kind of at once. You wanna start by putting the rotor on and then put the base of the caliper on, because the bolt here will get in the way of the bolt on the bracket. So make sure you tighten that first on the caliper and then put the bolt on the honed bracket. After that, you can kind of just assemble it however you'd like. You can just get the honed bracket in secure like I'm doing now. What I found is best is to torque everything down once the car is back together. It's a little bit difficult since I do have the trailing arm still on the car. Torquing it to the 52 foot-pounds that Honed recommends, because the trailing arm bushing wants to flex under the load of the torque wrench. So I'm gonna wait to do that when the car is all back together. So the brackets are installed. I'm super happy with what Honed has come up with these brackets. They are a really innovative but simple solution to correcting the geometry on the back of 90s Hondas. As you can see, there is some K-Tune stuff installed there. I wanted to kind of put the stuff back together when I had the Honed brackets in, and
Obviously I don't want to put old stuff back on. So next episode you will see the K-tune stuff go in, the coilovers and the LCAs. So stay tuned for that. Please subscribe to my channel, and next time we will jump into the rest of the suspension. Thanks for watching.